Hello, and welcome to today's presentation on the Universal by Design unit plan process. My name is Grace Greger, and I will be your proctor for today's presentation. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to explain the Universal by Design process in your own words, compare and contrast the activities in Stage 2 and Stage 3, and develop a hook to engage learners in the Universal by Design process. What exactly is the Universal by Design process, and how can educators use it to enhance student learning? The Universal by Design process requires educators to plan backwards. In order to plan backwards, an educator must ask themselves the following questions. What exactly are the big ideas that I want my students to learn? In other words, what do I want my students to be able to learn, knowledge and skills wise? What standards do these ideas align to? How do I align the assessments that I want to use to the standards and big ideas? And how do I provide a differentiated learning experience in order to meet all students' needs? When using the Universal by Design, otherwise known as UBD, design process, the educator is no longer the lecturer. Instead, they support the learner as needed and do not overteach. In addition to the educator becoming a facilitator of learning, the following qualities are also included in the planning process. Make sure that all learning goals are clear and made available to all students on a daily basis. Provide many resources for the students to learn from. The textbook is not enough. You need more than just a textbook. Students have some choice in the learning process, and a variety of activities are provided in order for individual learning differences to be accommodated. Ongoing feedback is provided for the students, and they are allowed to revise assignments according to the feedback. And begin the lesson with a hook in order to draw the student into the learning. Stage 1. Stage 1 is all about determining what you want the students to take away from the unit, both long-term and short-term learning. In this stage, educators determine what the big ideas of the unit are and align them to their content standards. For example, the Ohio Department of Education standards or national standards. The desired learning is then broken down into the three sections of transfer, meaning, and acquisition. In the transfer section, the educator determines what they want the students to learn so that they can apply it in the future on their own and in a different environment. For example, either as a student in a more advanced class, they are using prior knowledge to learn the current knowledge, or later on as an adult in the workplace. Meaning, in this section of Stage 1, the educator determines what exactly they want their students to understand as a result of the learning that will take place in this unit. In addition, the educator creates questions that will help grab the student's attention and foster inquiry. Acquisition. In the acquisition section of Stage 1, the educator determines what exactly they want their students to learn. In other words, the knowledge, facts, and or skills that the students will learn and develop as a result of the learning that will take place in the unit. In Stage 2, educators select which assessments they will use in order to determine what extent student learning is successful. In addition, The assessment selected for Stage 2 must align to the goals established in Stage 1. Some of the assessments that will be chosen will include checking for the mastery of content knowledge, such as skills, standards, etc. The remaining assessments should be designed so that the student must use higher order thinking skills. Higher order thinking assessments should be designed so that students are required to explain things in their own words. The students are able to justify their answers. The students are able to apply their learning to new challenges and/or situations. And the students are able to apply their learning with minimal help from others, including the teacher. Assessments such as quizzes, tests, exit slips, journal writings, and worksheets can be used to assess the basic knowledge and skills learned in the unit. However, different assessments should be used to evaluate higher order thinking. The recommended assessment for higher order thinking is a rubric. Rubrics allow teachers to communicate to the students exactly what is desired from the learning. In addition, rubrics make it easy for educators to grade different criteria of that learning. For example, educators can determine where a student excels and where a student is struggling in the desired learning. In Stage 3, educators plan the teaching and learning activities that will equip students with the ability to demonstrate the desired learning and understandings. In addition, the activities from Stage 3 must be aligned to the goals and assessments from Stage 1 and Stage 2. In order to determine if all three stages align with each other, the two sets of questions should be answered. If the answer is yes to any of the following questions, the three stages are not aligned. Set 1. Can the students perform well on the assessments but not understand the content? Also, can students master the content but still do poorly on the assessments? Set 2. Can the students complete the activities in Stage 3 but not be able to transfer their learning on the assessments in Stage 2? Also, can the students fail to complete the activities from Stage 3 but be able to successfully complete the assessments in Stage 2? Again, if you answer yes to any of these questions, your stages are not aligned and you must rework the activities from Stage 3 to align with those of Stage 1 and Stage 2. In addition to making sure that the learning activities in this stage align with the other two stages, educators use the acronym WHERE-TO to make sure that Stage 3 is engaging and effective for students. WHERE-TO stands for the following. W. Make sure that students know where the unit is headed, why it is headed in that direction, and what is expected of them as a learner. H. Hook and hold the student's attention throughout the entire unit. E. Equip the students with the necessary knowledge, tools, and experiences in order to meet the performance goals. R. Provide the students with many opportunities to rethink, reflect on, and revise their work. E. Allow students opportunities to evaluate their progress based on the formative assessments. T. Differentiate and tailor the learning in order to meet the students' varied learning styles and needs. And O. Organize the unit in order to maximize student engagement. Thank you for listening to my presentation on the Universal by Design unit plan process. If you have any further questions or would like to know more about the UBD process, consult the resources on this slide.